Hey guys, I caught Ben. He's practicing his message. Let's go check this out. Shh.
There's a second image that I want to give you in terms of how to do battle the way Jesus did battle is to take captive every single thought, just like it says in 2 Corinthians, we demolish arguments. Now, there's two images, like I said, I'm going to give you this weekend, and this is the second one. Whenever I get a thought that I think is from the enemy, that is a negative, a bad, a thought that is trying to bring me down, I have this image in my head. And it's kind of like this is what I do. Like, for example, last week I was working out early in the morning, and I had to stop. And maybe one of my kids is going to get sick or injured, or going to die. And this is what I thought in my head. What I did is, I just said that thought started to creep up, and here's what I did. I just got that thought like this ball, and I just said, get that thing out of my face. Get that thing out of my head. Get that cord out of my face. When that thought maybe creeps into your head about your safety or your security, about the Father's love, what do? You just say, get that cord out of my face. And then maybe you have this thought creeping in your head like, I'm totally alone, I'm lost in the world. What are you going to do? That thought's going to creep up and you say, get that cord out of my face. Again and again and again. No matter how many times that thought creeps in, you just bat that thought away and you can demolish every single pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God in your heart.
Hey everybody, as you can tell, we have some fun stuff planned for this weekend. I think a really fun special element for all ages in service this Sunday, and I think it'll be good training for all of us how to fight the real battles that matter. So I'm excited about that. I'm also excited for more of our church family members to come back, more of our friends to come back to church. And after the week I had this last week, I know one of the things that's going to help them come back is when even more of us are putting down our own preferences, some of our own discomforts, and we agree to wear a mask. I'm here, by the way, sorry, a little, that's a punchline I just gave. But I'm here a little flush and a little sweaty, just managing kids here on a Friday. I wanted to get this video ready for everyone to talk about masks again, which I know is tough. I know it's tough for people. We get it. I have my own personal opinions about it, my own discomforts about it, my own beliefs about it. But this last week, as I said, really shaped my belief even more as it pertains to Sunday morning service. You see, there's about 3 households that I spoke to this last week, had the most Zoom calls I've had since the beginning of the pandemic this last week. And I spoke to 3 Watermark committed leaders, household family members, longtime church family members. 2 of them have had basically a heart defect, a heart issue since they were little. They've had several surgeries now, being in their late 30s, early middle age, and they have had to make the decision for themselves, their whole family, to stay home, to really tightly quarantine. And yet they see the service happening on the back deck, they see the service happening outdoors, and they long for the time that they could come back, but they want to make sure it's as safe as humanly possible. And there was a third household, a third person I spoke to. She's about 70 plus years old, and her family, there are only 2 family members left. Not necessarily pertaining to COVID, but from other issues over life. And this family really softened my heart. Speaking to all 3 of these families softened my heart. I think that's such a good thing right now for all of us because we've had to be tough. We've had to grin and bear it. We've had to deal with a whole new world. It's been difficult. But God is always after softening our hearts. Makes me think of the Bible study that me and my men are going through. We read this last couple weeks, the story of Pharaoh. And it says repeatedly that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. But many times, Pharaoh hardened his own heart. It's an example of evil. It's an example of wickedness. But all throughout the Bible, cover to cover of the Bible, there's this example, there's this reference, this narrative of softening our hearts. Here's one of the most famous ones. It's from Ezekiel chapter 11, verse 19. The Lord spoke to the prophet Ezekiel, and he said, and God was saying this, I will give them singleness of heart and put a new spirit within them. I will take away their stony, stubborn heart and give them a tender, responsive heart. Now, I'm not saying that people that have an opinion about masks that's unfavorable and they don't believe in it and they're quote-unquote anti, I'm not saying you guys have a hard heart. All I'm trying to say is that I have had a tough heart and a hard heart to understanding what some families are really going through. And these are not just some distant stranger or even our neighbor, that this whole politics series has been about loving our neighbor. This is not our neighbor, this is our family members, our brothers and sisters in Christ. And so I'm thinking to myself, man, I would be willing to do anything for an hour if it meant that they felt safer and more comfortable and more secure in coming to be an in-person fellowship. And so I'm encouraging you all the way I was encouraged. What God kind of spoke to me this last week through these 3 households. When we started this reopening of services about 3 months ago, we told ourselves that we were going to put masks on for our friends. so that our friends could come back to church quicker. And that was kind of just a tagline. It was more of a theory. This last week reminded me that it's not a theory. It's a reality for these families. So I hope that you'll pray about this. Just consider what I'm talking about here, and consider some of these families that are your friends. Some of you may even know who I'm talking about right now. And I know that this will increase our fellowship, our worship, and the word that God will bring all of us, all of our families. And of course, we're praying that this pandemic would end quickly, that it would end soon, so we could all be ahead of this and we could go back to a strong in-person fellowship. For now, I hope that we will see you this weekend, online or in person, 8:30, 10:30. Thank you so much for listening and praying through this issue.